What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Hey, what's up, guys? Is it Wednesday? Yeah, happy Wednesday.
It is. It's this. Although this week has been a blur. So Wednesday, Tuesday, Friday. Who knows? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's just, it's the start of the year has been really fast paced, which is what I like. To be honest, I get kind of bored during November and December. Sure, spending time with family is great and Christmas stuff and Thanksgiving stuff, but I hate to say it, but I like to work. I like to work on projects.
I'm with you, man. And this one was an exception for us because we were grinding through the break ahead of the release. But it's it is always nice to be doing something, right? And when you like what you're doing, I think that's the key. And I know these last week, 2 weeks have just been a gauntlet for our team. And so, but seeing everything that came out yesterday and today, I think it's been awesome. So. Really excited to have you on this space, Danny. See you're here. Gonna get super massive up here as well.
Yeah, go.
Let's see.
Happy
I think we're just
Wednesday.
waiting
Happy
on.
Wednesday from me. Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here for this chat. I'm looking forward to it. I missed hearing your voice on the spaces, Nick. It's been a while. So that's yeah. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Good to have you back as well. And before you were hosting these,
That's
so
true.
now me and Spencer have picked up some of that. But we've had some good ones. So, and I think this is not going to be an exception. I think this is going to be an awesome
Well,
space. So I
let's
think.
hope it's not the exception.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it'll be a good one. And it's a cool topic, and I actually think it's a really interesting topic because it's a topic that a lot of people have different opinions on, and I think that some of those opinions will come out, and I think we can actually do a lot of good, and that's what we try to do in these spaces is kind of get into stuff and not just think of it from the lens of, all right, what's the PC or the best way of saying a particular thing. It's more like let's talk about these things, and because at the end of the day we're still building this space, and so much of this stuff is unsettled. So really got a great group of people here. Super massive. What's up, man? How you doing?
Ah, man, I'm good. I'm good. I've literally just got off an hour-long presentation, so my voice is like well tuned up, well warm. I'm ready for this.
Oh, great.
I get it, man. That what did the presentation go well?
It did. I mean, I've got a load of bass heads who it's my community who jumping in as well. So we just launched our NFT. We had our drop last weekend. My God, that was like 3 days ago, and now we're in it. So like it's just full on non-stop comms, non-stop communication, non-stop kind of dealing with stuff. So you know, it is what it
Congrats,
is.
man. That's a huge
Thank
huge
you.
step. It's a fun ride after that point. And I think not I couldn't think of a better a leader for a project. So good on you guys. I'm excited to see how Baseheads turns out, and I'm definitely excited about that the project as well. So it looks like we got a bunch of people in here. I think we might be waiting for one more speaker. So I'll give it another minute, and then we can jump in because we got some good questions and a really good lineup of things to talk about. Today's topic is going to be content creators in the metaverse. So we're going to be probably talking about everything from actual content creation for in terms of creating interesting videos and walkthroughs and all the different things that you're seeing pop up here and there to kind of the role of influencers, good or bad. A lot of the things that we've seen, all the bad things that we probably saw during the bull and the bear market over the last year. I think anything is fair game for this discussion on this topic. So we'll get into some interesting stuff for sure. And yeah, I think Spencer, we can. I guess if we don't hear from Jake, we can just get started. And if he comes in, we'll get him up here. But I guess one thing we should do to start is all of us introduce ourselves. If there is a project connection or what something that you're working on predominantly, please do feel free to let us know about that. We're all interested. I'll take a quick moment to introduce myself, and then we can have everybody else introduce themselves. So my name is Nick Frontera. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the founders of Apollo Entertainment, which is the studio behind Satoshiverse, and I've been in the NFT space and blockchain space since 2017. Really had the pleasure of seeing this space grow immensely over the past 5 years. Before that, I was a IP and entertainment lawyer at a large law firm in LA. So I got to do a lot of interesting stuff that then translated kind of somewhat unintentionally into a lot of the work we started doing in the NFT space. So we've been building the Satoshiverse for the last 2 years. It is a blockchain superhero universe, or blockchain themed superhero universe. The core, I guess, flagship part of the IP that we're working on right now is a kind of fast-paced action RPG game that, as many of you know, released in its earliest alpha prototype form to our Legionnaire holders yesterday. So I'm super stoked to talk about that. We basically spent all of yesterday on the forums getting feedback and hearing, really awesome stuff now that after, 6 months of talking about the game, people are finally able to get their hands on this super early version. It's been a fun 24 hours since then. But I'm excited to get into that later. But, the other things we've done is we've done several NFT collections. We have our 2 avatar collections, the Legionnaires and the 8 Mile Army. And then we have several comic art collections and collectible collections with Jose Delvo, who is also one of the founding creators of Satoshiverse and the Satoshi the Creator Hero. Jose is an 89-year-old comic artist who worked for DC and Marvel for 70 years and is also my grandfather. So I won't go into too much. We've got, socials and our Twitter if you guys want to learn more about Satoshiverse, but that's not the goal for this chat. So I really want to hear from our awesome panel. We've got Scott, Danny, and Supermassive. And so why don't we start with you, Scott, and let us know about yourself, what you're doing in the space, and then we'll jump in.
Thanks, Nick. Well, first of all, congratulations on the launch of Satoshiverse. I literally had meetings yesterday until like 10:30 at night, and I still jumped on board, downloaded the client, and ran around and killed people. And I was absolutely just blown away by the layout of the map and how detailed it was. The fight animations were great. I mistakenly double-clicked the space bar, and all of a sudden my guy rolled forward in a sprint, which I thought was pretty cool. So it was a little exciting when I did that. But yeah, the overall playability of it, if this is the earliest form of its beta, it's looking incredibly good. So I can't wait to see more updates as we move forward here. But a little background on me, guys. I kind of, my background's quite interesting. I got my start, in this industry, I guess we can call it, in reality TV. I was on a show on MTV called The Real World back in 2009, season 21. And right around that time, Twitter came out, YouTube was starting to get popular, and I'm a fitness guy. I've been doing fitness my entire life. I've built a few clubs. And then when YouTube started getting popular, I just started making YouTube videos back at a time where everyone told me it was stupid. YouTube was never going to turn into anything. I was just some narcissistic dude in the gym filming myself, even though I was creating educational content. And what ended up happening was I pretty much cornered the entire, market on YouTube. I was the first person to create fitness content on, a weekly basis. And because of that, my videos are embedded in websites and apps all over the world. I worked with Lionsgate for a few years. I headed their fitness YouTube channel called BeFit. I've done a few of those DVDs where like I'm in the front and I got 6 people behind me and we're exercising. In fact, for those of you who work out from home, if you go to bodybuilding.com, when COVID happened, everyone was forced to work out at home. My program, Metaburn 90, took off and was like the #1 program on there during the last couple of years too. So my background in just television, reality TV, and YouTube really helped me get a solid handle on the creation side. My fitness channel has about 3 million subscribers. My gaming channel has about 60,000 subscribers. And about 2 years ago, I got into crypto. And the first year of my journey, I just really dove in and tried to learn as much as I could. And I realized that if crypto is going to go anywhere, gaming is going to be what leads it, especially with the utility involved with NFTs. Because at the end of the day, if a game is fun, people are going to play it. Like many of you on this call, I've been a gamer since I could hold a Nintendo controller in my hands. You know, I'm a huge adventure gaming guy, huge mobile gaming guy. And I'm also, I guess I'd classify myself as a grinder. So I like to find every little secret in the game, and I don't like to use cheat books and cheat guides and YouTube videos. I like to get frustrated and figure it out on my own. And I'd like to think that my lifetime of experience has helped bring me to where I am right now, where I actually am a developer of my own project called WAGMI Defense, and we're a tower defense mobile game. We just launched our beta on December 27th. We're going to be the first game in the Google Play and iPhone App Store where you can purchase NFTs with fiat. Just double click your phone like any other game. We're partnered with Immutable X. We just launched our comic exclusively with GameStop. There's a lot going on here, and so I'm really excited, Nick, that you decided to have me on this this episode, because I feel like I have a really good view from both sides of the equation, and a lot of what I do is working with content creators and trying to guide them and get them to focus on the right things. I'm just really excited to hear, you know, everybody else has to say too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. No, and thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you were able to get in there and play for a little bit, and hopefully you'll be able to grind a little bit and find all the details in the game. Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of work got put into the environments, and there's 11 sectors that you can kind of progressively play through, and it's got that roguelike feature to it. So you die a lot, and everybody, that's kind of the point of the game. So it is one of those frustrating early on until you start to get the hang of it type of design. So I know when I started playing it, I was very frustrated because I was kind of like more of your slow paced, MMORPG lover, and I used to only dying every so often and then getting to return to a save point. So it was a new experience for me, but it definitely has grown on me a ton, and I'm excited for what everyone thinks. So thanks for
Well,
testing out, and hopefully you'll get to do a little more.
I was going to say, not to embarrass myself, but it took me a good 10 minutes to figure out that print was the start button.
Yeah.
I was on the screen and I'm like, I don't need to print anything. Like, what's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. So that was definitely something we went back and forth on, and we won't go down a rabbit hole. But one of the unfortunate things to releasing the game this early is that it doesn't currently have any of the story components, and so this is really just our basic gameplay loop that the story will get layered onto. But the print refers to the bio printer, which is the device that actually lets you kind of like a gamer type of, if you've seen that movie, channel your avatar through the outskirts. So kind of a lore angle on that one, but not immediately clear for sure on on a first time user who doesn't want to read the walkthrough that we posted, because that was definitely one of the things, like, all right, print needs go, type of thing. But yeah, I get it, man. I that was something we discussed. Danny, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing? I know you work with a lot of content creators as well, so it would be great to hear about your experience.
Yeah, well, thanks for the invite to this, to the spaces this evening. Super happy to be celebrating the launch of the alpha with you. I haven't, unfortunately, all of my devices are Apple. I'm one of those people. So I've until I get access to a gaming PC, I haven't been able to test out the game myself. However, I've looked at every single video that I've seen posted. I've got the Twitch stream up in front of me as well. So I've managed to have a good look, but obviously without managing to experience myself yet. So I'll dig into what I really liked about it as we get further into the discussion, I'm sure. A little bit about me. I work primarily with communities as a community manager, as an advisor, with various different companies and projects. I've worked with Satoshiverse in the past, leading up to the launch of 8 Mile Army. A few other projects as well include The Lightbulb Man, My Pet Hooligan, Life magazine. I'm currently working with the Board 8 band Kingship and Manchester United Football Club and the Tezos Foundation partnership there. I've worked with a lot of other things that haven't sounded as nice and haven't been as successful as well, but I won't go through the entire list. Before I suppose I've been into Web3 I've been here actively now for 2 years. But it's coming up on 6 years since I bought my first crypto and started is it lurking? Sort of lurking on things, lurking on videos, lurking on conversations without actually engaging. And then around early 2021, everything started to really sort of come into place. So I decided to effectively drop what I was doing and throw myself into Web3, and I've somehow swinging from vine to vine managed to get to the other side of the jungle so far. But who knows what else is left on the journey. But yeah, it's before I got into Web3, I worked in broadcasting. I worked as a radio presenter in the UK at a few different stations. I've been a content creator, worked with content creators as well in the past when I've been either like working with artists in the music industry, or just for example, one of the things I used to do was get hired to film drone shots for other creators. So I had a lot of experience a few years ago with that, and hopefully I can add some insight into the discussions we're going to have today about content creating in the metaverse. As for the last 2 years now, I suppose that has been my biggest focus is on effectively migrating my skill set and what I enjoy doing and what I love into this space that I also love. And I'm excited about the future of content creation in the metaverse. VTubing is something I've absolutely baffled by but fascinated by at the same time. I think we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Amazing, Danny. Sorry, I was having an issue unmuting myself. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. But thank you so much. I'm excited to get into it with you as well, and glad that you can kind of bring that perspective, having worked with us and knowing what we've been doing. And then I guess the last guest on the list is Supermassive. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about Baseheads and the release and everything you guys have been doing?
What are my Baseheads? Where are my Baseheads at? Yes, I am Supermassive, and we have just launched the Baseheads. We are a metaverse-focused content creator monster studio. Danny was talking about VTubing. We've built a mocap studio in our office, the same one they used in Avatar, so that we can do mocap and pilot avatars and be like, just boss that entire system. I've spent like 25 years of my life making films, music videos, commercials. I shot a feature film in 2012, and then I kind of made a shift in 2017 to crypto. Went to work for Harmony as their creative director, and then I went to the Defiant, where I was the head of video and multimedia for about 2 years or thereabouts. I think that's probably where most people in this space came across me, bringing my own brand of madness to the story of DeFi and then beyond into NFTs. And now I'm launching my own brand, which is Based AF, and we have our own NFT, which launched at the same time, called the Baseheads. And the goal is to just go nuts in the metaverse and tell stories about this emerging space that don't necessarily speak to virtual, but they speak to humanity as we kind of confront the emergence of AI and of all these tools that seem to be kind of stripping us of humanity, painting this dystopian future. Somewhere in the middle of all of it, there's another version of this which is positive, and which is about reconnecting us with things that we didn't think we would connect with. And for me, that is a story that needs telling. And as a content creator, that's the one that I want to foreground. So we're up and running and about to launch our first big mission, which is for me to run a marathon in the metaverse. No one has ever done it before. I'm going to do it, and it's going to absolutely suck. So that's me.
Amazing, man. Well, congratulations again on the launch. Just real quick before Spencer, you introduce yourself and get into the questions. You'll see I posted a tweet up top for those of you, but I also wanted to extend, to our speakers. Feel free to post any relevant news that you think would be good for these guys to see. If you have anything you just announced, especially new collections and whatnot, I'm sure everybody wants to learn more. And if it's like a different social media account like WAGMI or Baseheads, it would be good to have something up there so that people can go and follow that as well. But with that, Spencer, why don't you introduce yourself and take us away?
Sure thing. Yep. So my name is Spencer Vogel. I'm going to be hosting the space today. I've been in crypto and I guess NFT specifically since 2018, kind of as you said, Danny, as a lurker for a while, and then started, officially working in the space with Apollo about a year and a half ago, helping with strategy and everything in between. And yeah, so I'm also a content creator as well, which is really cool. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Comics and Crypto podcast. And then one other thing I wanted to say, I got a chance to play Scott's game, WAGMI Defense, a couple times. And yesterday we actually got on a live stream, and incredibly fun game, like really fun, really challenging, like super excited for all of you guys to check that out as well. But yeah, so now I'll just get into the questions. So we're going to do a few questions that are going to be to everyone in the group, and then we'll move into some direct questions for each of you guys. So I'll start off with the first question, and maybe Scott, why don't you start us off on this, and then people can jump in if they want to, and if there's a lull, I can call on people. But the first question is, what about content creation do you enjoy, and what inspired you to create content for the Web3 space specifically?
That's a great question. So what I love best about creating content is the community building. So when I first started my gaming channel, it was about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I play a game on my phone called Dokkan Battle. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with it. If you are, just drop a heart so I can see. It's a Dragon Ball Z game on the phone, and it's incredibly complicated, but I'm a huge anime fan, and I love Dragon Ball, so I was like, well, I want to play this game. Like, literally would give me a headache playing it for an hour or two because it was just so complicated, so many characters. But I loved it. And I was like, and people love watching these videos on YouTube. And so when I first started, making content, there was already a handful of guys that were making content for the game, and they were doing pretty well. And me being me, I just reached out to every single one of them and I said, hey, why don't we all like start working together and build a community and start doing collaborations and have a lot of fun. And now 6-7 years later, we're still doing that. We still do big collaborations, 4 or 5 of us at a time doing summons on the game. And for me, that type of content creation is so much fun because you don't feel like you're being forced to create anything. You're just filming yourself having fun with your friends. And that's what content creation should be in gaming. Now, of course, there's strategy guides, and then there's like, time trials and things like that. In fact, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube of people doing time trials of games, especially the NES games that I could never beat, like Battletoads. And you watch some guy beat it in like 15 minutes because he's just so good at it, right? But for me, the content creation side, when I have to sit down and make a video, I think about what's got me excited about that game in that moment. And now moving into Web3, Web3 is a combination of what I'm excited about in that moment, plus what Web3 can bring to the table. So, Spencer, when we were playing the game yesterday on our Battle Royale, WAGMI Defense, people were asking questions. They're like, hey, so like, how do you play the game? How do you level up the characters? Do you have to buy the characters? And I'm like, yeah, like you own the characters. As soon as you purchase a character, you level it up. When you get it to its max level, you can choose to keep it, you can sell it, you can trade it with your friends, you can give it away on your stream. And that education side really plays into my strong suits because I love just bringing new people on board and explaining things in a way that makes sense. And a lot of times in Web3, we try to overcomplicate the technology because we love talking about it and so revolutionary. But like, for example, I'll be out to dinner with my wife and her sister-in-law and some of their friends, and they'll be like, oh, so you're creating a Web3 game or an NFT game. Like, what does that even mean? I go, oh, do your kids play Roblox? Like, yeah. I was like, well, basically, you'd be able to resell the items they don't use anymore and get some of your money back. And like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, right? And so when it comes to the content that I'm creating, whether it's for WAGMI or Satoshiverse, I'm going to explain it in a way that gets gamers excited. Like gamers get excited about having the most rare stuff in the game, having a season 1 skin in Fortnite, even if you started playing today, right? Being able to go and buy that and have that in flex. I also play a lot of big time. I think I was telling Spencer this yesterday. You know, I saw the title, The Black Knight, and I was like, I guarantee this title on the character is going to be the number 1 title everybody wants. And when I bought it, it was like $295, and now it's like $700, $800, right? And granted, this is the more expensive side of NFTs. You don't have to spend that much money to play these games. In fact, you can play most of them for free. But I wanted the Black Knight title because to me, it's a flex. I love the Black Knight. Everybody knows the Black Knight, right? Everybody watches Monty Python, or at least that part of the Monty Python movie. So for me personally, guys, moving forward, creating in the space, I'm creating things that I'm excited about. I don't feel like I'm trying to overhype any of the games that I'm talking about for the sake of just making the content, right? I'm genuinely excited to play these games.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, I'm not a content creator, so I'll keep my answer short. But I think just parroting what you said is sometimes, at least the content I consume, it's watching people do things that I either enjoy doing myself or that are exciting to watch, right? And so, from a game creation standpoint and the development side, you know, the way we think about working with content creators is first we got to build something. We got to build great content, right? We got to build something that naturally leads itself to people getting excited about what we're building. And then, you know, the content creation side is a skill set that, you know, you and others possess, but the material is what we're providing. And I hope that, you know, as we continue to develop, a lot of the content creation will flow naturally from people just being excited to play the game with their friends, or, you know, talk about strategies and whatnot.
No, you nailed it on the head, right? Again, you have to be excited about the game. The game has to be fun. And then that flow of content comes naturally, because if the game is fun and interesting, you know, strategic content does really well on platforms like YouTube and Twitch, especially if you're playing a very competitive game, because everybody wants to know what the latest meta is. Like, so for example, you might play Call of Duty and watch videos of people just doing like insane headshots, or some of my favorite videos to watch on Call of Duty is the people that like take the vehicles into the mall and just start running everybody over, and hearing all the people scream like, he's in the car, like, what the hell, someone blow up the car, you know, like, that shit's really funny. But when I want to start to get a bit more competitive, then I'll go watch the videos like, here's the best way to build your sniper, here's the best way to build your machine gun. Or my game, you know, there's 8 different characters, every character has their own skill set. Pretty soon I want to see creators making videos saying, here are the best 8 characters right now if you like to play offensively, here's the best if you like to play defensively, here's the best if you like to use spells. So that strategy content is really important, and we can't make that content unless the creators of the game have that in mind while they're creating the game itself.
Danny or Supermassive, do you got anything to add for this question?
I think you're absolutely right on, obviously, the experiences in the games need to be interesting. And I think for content creators, see, something happened to me recently on Red Dead Online that I just visualized as you were talking there, which was every night I was logging into the same server to play Red Dead, just a couple of hours, just do some bounties, do some hunting and stuff. And there was this one player, and every day, no matter what time of day it was, he was there, and he had a moonshine. He had a moonshine shack, right? You can on Red Dead, it's like Cowboy GTA. If you've not played it, and the online, you can open up your own bar, and keep it running for other players. And this guy had this moonshiner up, and it became like I absolutely loved it. Ended up in so many duels and gunfights, either in the bar or outside the bar, over the course of a week. And this guy who was running it, he obviously was on voice channel, and you could hear him on proximity, and he was very entertaining. He reminded me of Free Dog from Fallout almost, but obviously he was a real person, and his name on the game, his like cowboy name was his YouTube channel and his Twitter ID, and he'd made his Red Dead Online Moonshine Shack owner the character, the influencer, and that it was just absolutely brilliant. And I think that perfectly fits into what you were saying about not only does it have to be the great experience, but also creatively think about how you can get the best out of that experience. Because you wouldn't think that running a moonshine shack on Red Dead would get you anything, but you document that journey, you talk about others, you share it, you build a community around it, and then lo and behold, you're making 5-6 figures a year, pouring pretend pints. And that's brilliant to me. That's why I had to say on that.
And Supermassive?
Well, I think what you guys have touched on here is UGC and the way that UGC is about to kind of become the dominant force in everything. What I'm really curious about here is the role of things like ChatGPT in all of that. The ability to kind of spin up prototypes really fast of different ideas and different experiences. And then, of course, if you're talking about virtual, the content creators themselves can be just an AI, can be a virtual presence doing different things. So there's all sorts of different ways in which what was previously quite a simple kind of stream of content or a stream of entertainment is going to be massively kind of splintered and turned into something I don't think we've ever seen before, which offers up huge opportunities to those who jump in first and really take advantage of that. But like everything I've ever thought about as a content creator, the roadblocks, the friction points are rapidly being remade by AI in front of me in ways that I probably wasn't smart enough to realize, but also I'm probably quite well positioned to take advantage of. So I'm really curious about how all that's going to come about. It's probably worth me saying here that my position on all this and the way I'm attacking the metaverse is not gaming focused at all. It's everything else. It's how the metaverse is going to impact education, how it's going to impact the way we date, how it's going to impact the way we see ourselves in the world, that self-actualization component. And those, like I said at the beginning, those are the human stories that I think will get missed in all the news coverage. But they're the things that preoccupy me as the father of 2 young kids and the generation that's going to be metaverse native. Like, what are we leaving for them, and how can we make that positive? And the content that I could possibly be creating that helps parents understand what their kids are doing when they play Roblox 24 hours a day. This, to me, that's kind of important.
What you're just saying there, especially about AI, literally could not be the more perfect segue into my next question, which is, how do you think the metaverse will change the way content is created and consumed in the future? So this is open to everyone. Maybe Nick, you want to start this one off?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think playing off of what Supermassive was just talking about, I think that the metaverse, there's so many different ways that having a digital presence and potentially a anonymous digital presence could change the way that content is created and consumed, right? We've seen already influencers who are completely anonymous, and I think if you look at social media and general influence over the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we've kind of seen a change in the way that people consume messaging from influencers and from thought leaders with the advent of social media. And so before, it was celebrities getting quoted, and then it was people appearing on news channels and people that we held in high stature for some other reason, right? And they were giving their opinions, or maybe it was a expert on this or an expert on that. And then it kind of quickly transitioned with social media into this new idea of an influencer, a social media influencer, who were making their profession off of this this skill set that they have of entertaining and informing, and for good, for better and for worse, right? I think we had a lot of issues pop up, but I think it brought a lot of value and kind of changed the way we consume content. I think that the metaverse could be that next shift, both from a good and a bad perspective. I think that more and more people are placing trust and consuming content from people that they can't even really put a face to. And sometimes that's important, and sometimes that's not important. Sometimes it's perfectly cool if your face is a 3D face mapped animated version of an NFT that you are are part of their project, or you're a collector and that's your kind of virtual identity. And I think that those things are great, and I love seeing it, and I love seeing projects, and I know that we're working on things to kind of enable different capabilities for people to really embrace their avatars and their online identities. But I also think that that presents certain risks that, we're going to have to find ways to adapt as a society and understand that, without accountability, sometimes some of the content that might be consumed may not be the same type of content that would have been put out 10 years ago or 15 or 20 or 30 years ago. And so I think it's going to present a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities to reach much broader audiences. You've got in time translation technology that's being worked out, and you couple that with an anonymous avatar, and you could literally have one influencer being able to reach people in 30 different languages all over the world instantly, right, through the metaverse. And I think that's what excites me about how the metaverse might change how we consume and create content. But I definitely want to hear your guys' perspective on this too, because again, I'm not a content creator per se, so coming at it more from the consumption side.
I like your point of view on that. I personally just think that we are, a long time away from having a true metaverse. We saw what Zuckerberg put his quote unquote metaverse out, and it was literally like Wii U for the Switch, but way worse, right? In terms of the characters and walking around. And I mean, I feel like every game in itself, like people, when people reach out to me and say, "Hey, we're building a metaverse," and I kind of like immediately almost want to close the door and not talk to them, because like you can't build the metaverse. The metaverse is going to have to be this thing where everybody's in-game worlds all come together and the NFTs work together, right? So like, for example, Satoshi Verse for your game, that's going to be your game's world. It can be a part of the metaverse, but you're not saying you're building a metaverse, because the metaverse is the combination. Like I said, I think a great example of that for any anime fans here is, Sword Art Online. And when I first got introduced to the metaverse and I watched, Ready Player One, I think you mentioned that earlier, I instantly thought of Sword Art Online. And interestingly enough, that movie, I mean, that anime takes place in the year 2022, which was last year when all this stuff kind of started popping off. But, they were able to take their characters from season 1 to season 2, from one world to the other, and a lot of their attributes transferred over, like, their character stats, their strength, their speed, fighting skills, things like that. And a lot of things didn't, because the game wasn't prepared to take on certain items from one game to another. And so I think as we move forward, because we're now introducing, this technology like NFTs, now the next step from here is figuring out how to get cross-play collaborations going with games. So moving forward, what I like about the idea of the metaverse is that more games are going to be more willing to work together in order to have this interoperability of these assets, because that's the only way the metaverse is going to be formed. And like no one can build the metaverse. It's going to have to kind of unfold on its own as we get better and better at allowing our games to interact with each other. What do you guys think about that?
100%. No, I couldn't agree more. I think I started in the crypto space because of Decentraland, and I think that was one of the things that troubled me the most about early discussions about what the metaverse would be. The idea that it could be contained within one, one client, or one even just engine, right? And everyone kind of had their own idea early on, and I agree. I think it's a easier issue probably to talk about conceptually than, and I think that's why you're totally right that we're a long way off, because interoperability is, especially with all the different engines and asset and file types and all the different things that go into building a game and making assets interoperable. I think that before we even get close to that, and get organized around this idea of working together, we do need standards and engines that people are kind of agreeing, this is the way that assets are going to be represented, or this is a way that can be represented within all these different engines. But I think it's going to start and I know it's something we're looking into with, like you said, just a couple of projects getting together and saying, okay, we're all building an Unreal Engine. Let's see what we can do from a interoperability perspective on avatars. And then, I know there's companies working on interoperability layers specifically for avatars so that it's, an API that projects can take in Unreal Engine or in Unity or something like that, right? So I think, it to me, but the point is correct. I think 100% that there's not going to be one metaverse. The metaverse is kind of this broader definition of all this combination, and the question I think is more how interconnected will the metaverse be, and what that looks like, right, practically, and how we actually make that happen. I think it's going to be baby steps, but meaningful ones, in these next couple of years.
Awesome. Yeah, just to move on, because we're getting low on time, I want to move on to the individual questions here. So the first one's up for Supermassive. So I got turned on to you and your content through the Defiant, and absolutely, love just the entertaining videos and the perspective that you put on things. So I was curious, how does the experience of working for a publication like the Defiant compare to working and creating content independently?
Well, I'm actually on my bike riding through the rain right now, so if it sounds a little wafty, it's because I had to get home. Working for a publication like the Defiant was incredible for a couple of reasons. One was we got to kind of remake the way the media covers crypto in real time and experiment with that. Secondly, I just got to talk to a bunch of fans, like over and over and over, just understanding the stories that drove the successes and failures of various DeFi projects and the NFT projects. Seeing that when you're forced to research what happened for a story, you get really down deep in the weeds and you start to see these patterns emerging and these things that, really basically reflect the best and the worst of human behavior. And that's really what's driving everything now. It's this very kind of visceral amplification of the best and worst of human behavior. And that's kind of fun because the metaverse allows people to be different versions of themselves and take on different personalities. And so you're going to have this very flexible kind of notion of what it is to be yourself. Obviously, making my own project, I have my own kind of angle in on the metaverse. You were asking about the technical challenges of creating in the metaverse. I mean, I know how to make videos. I'm really good at it. But like building in Unreal, building in Unity, it just throws up all these things. You're just like, God, this is annoying. This is so annoying. But you also are aware that people will look back in 10 years and go, God, you remember when they used to do it like that? we're the idiots that have to try and make that happen. And I'm kind of enjoying that. I'm enjoying, it's more like a hacker mentality. It's like you're just coming up with stuff that no one's ever had to come up with before. And because of that, I guess that analogy of it being the Wild West, of being a kind of frontier town, or as we describe it ourselves, a trash land of bad and good ideas, it's a lot of fun. I'll be honest. Like we just decide we're going to try and do something, and then we spend a week ripping our hair out because we just don't know how to do it. And then you're like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. So I'm obviously loving having my own path and having my own brand and being able to do things in a way that's like very true to me, I think. So yeah, having a good time.
Awesome. Thanks, Supermassive. Next question up is for Danny. So as someone who has both created content and worked with a number of content creators, how do you think Web3 projects and games can best work with content creators?
That is a good question. I suppose looking at it from what I was saying before and what I mentioned about characters in the game or players in the game becoming personalities and influencers and creators in of themselves. I suppose one thing that could be cool is to look at, obviously, if you're building a Web3 game, for example, like Satoshiverse, whose alpha phase 1 is now live. See, Nick will thank me for that plug later. He'll text me and be like, "Thanks for that." But if you're building something like that, then creatively, obviously putting a lot of thought into the development and the structure and the technical stuff in the game is really, really good. But also thinking about the vibe, the characters, the actors. One thing that I think could be a good idea is there's a lot of like emerging DJs in the space, right? For example, like DJ Tropics, who are absolutely incredible showmen, I suppose. a digital Web3 showman who pop up on video streams and live streams as their NFTs and play tunes and get everyone absolutely psyched. I'd be partnering with those people at development stage, and I'd be working with them on a partnership on what the character in the game would be. For example, like I mentioned before, like a Free Dog from Fallout 3. That's a really good example. What if you had an actual iconic like DJ or MC play that part, but they were that part as opposed to playing an acted thing, I suppose is what I would do. Initially, because I think that as well has the best chance of working best for both parties, because you've obviously got you develop the game, and then a content creator could come in 6 months later, build their platform, and they could build their platform on bricks that you don't necessarily want to be laying. So I think partnering with them in the early stages and fleshing those things out together and building that creative relationship between the team and the talent, I suppose, that's what I'd do, and I think that'll be better in the long term as well. I think get everyone on the same page early on presents the best opportunities. One of the things as well that I've been talking to with a few of my musician friends are trying some experiments out. I know one of them just bought themselves a mutant ape and has come up with a little name and a personality for it. And they're just going to release some kind of music they've been working on for 2-3 years as this new character, so on and so forth. Well, I'd look at the space at things like that are emerging. Maybe if you look at things like, one of the really coolest things I love in gaming is Grand Theft Auto 4, right? You can go and watch Ricky Gervais do a 15-minute gig in Liberty City in game, and I would be pursuing things like that, real world, right as early on as possible when I'm developing my game and universe, metaverse, I suppose.
Awesome, thanks, Danny. Really appreciate your perspective on that. So next one is up to Scott. So you talked about a little bit before about how you built one of YouTube's largest fitness channels, and then you transitioned into gaming. So I was curious kind of what that transition was like, moving into gaming and then now into Web3, and especially kind of how your Web2 audience has thought about your transition into Web3.
Well, my transition was, instead of filming fitness videos in my gym downstairs, I now film videos upstairs in my game room. That was probably a bad joke. No laugh bubbles down below. That's okay. So, I mean, I've had my gaming channel now for, like I said, the last 6 or 7 years. But transitioning into Web3 is a little tricky. And on my fitness channel, I did a few videos saying, hey guys, because last year I didn't stop making content on Scott Herman Fitness, but it did drastically slow down, like maybe like one video or reel a week, just to keep up with the community, and also just to get some tips out there. Or sometimes, you just have those moments of creation where you just want to do a funny video, and so you go and film something. So I kept the channels going, but I spent a lot of time building last year, and I did a test and posted on my fitness channel, like, hey guys, this is what I've been up to for the last year. I'm building this game. Here's how it works. It's going to be a mobile game. And the reception was really good, right? There were a couple comments where people were like, oh, is this an NFT game? And then I would just kind of respond like, yeah, it is, but it's not what you think, because you don't need a wallet. You don't need crypto or any of that stuff to play our game. You just got to download it from the App Store, and if you want to purchase any of the in-game assets, you would do it like any other game on your phone right now, right? Like the Dokkan Battle game I play, I spend all kinds of money on the Dragonstones. Kids are spending money on Roblox. My mom is spending money on her Candy Crush, right? Like, people are used to doing these microtransactions to the point to where South Park had a whole episode about it with the Canada Bucks in the Canadian game that they were playing, and Canada was making like millions of dollars, and Stan spent like $16,000 on a credit card, and Stan's dad had to go be Lord and make more money to pay off the bill. Like, if you watch South Park, you understand the episode. So with my gaming channel where I stream my Web 2 games, obviously if you just stop making Web 2 content, that's not good. What I think is going to be the easiest transition is to actually start doing even more Web 2 content and then slowly integrating the games you're playing in Web 3 like in the middle. So last week, for example, now that we released our public beta for WAGMI Defense, which I did post a link above here in the space because you allowed us to earlier, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go live and I'm going to do a video on Dokkan Battle. And after about 20 minutes, I was like, hey guys, by the way, check this out. And I had already pre-made a screen on my Streamlabs because Dokkan Battle is a vertical game and WAGMI Defense is horizontal on the phone. So I changed screens, turned my phone horizontal, pulled up my game, and I was like, check it out. The game I've been building is here. And people were really excited about it. Like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And then I had a link from the download the beta. We played a few matches. And then I went back to Dokkan Battle and kept doing what I was doing there. And then by the end of the stream, I did it again. Like, hey guys, for those of you who joined late, just want to remind you that my game is out. Here's how you play. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to do tournaments in the future. We're going to have our own clan, and just talked about the things that makes it exciting for your viewers, which is playing the game with them, creating a clan with them, having tournaments with them. Not about asset ownership. Like they do care about that, but they'll care about it more once they start playing and just know the game is fun.
Nice. Thanks, Scott. So we're going to announce our winner of our giveaway. So every week we give away one of our 8Mo Army avatars to one of the attendees of the spaces. So today's winner is at Ojesuno, or just Joss. So congrats to Joss / at Addressinu. Yeah, we'll definitely
Congratulations.
get you that prize. And then I'm gonna basically I think we'll just do one more question that'll open up to everyone, and then we'll close it out. And why don't we start with Danny on this one, because I think you'll have a good perspective on it. So what do you think are the most effective channels for getting your message out there in the Web3 space, and why? Is it TikTok? Is it Twitter? Is it YouTube? What is it?
I think the most effective way of getting your message out into the Web3 space is to send it undercover as something that doesn't look like it should be in the Web3 space. I mean that in terms of just to talk about something I've been doing lately with working with Manchester United. Is we had obviously a big established football club with their already established fans, and then we introduced collectible keys that were free to claim by partnering with a blockchain that effectively creates a wallet attached to a social account or an email address. And within about 48 hours, no, I think by the end of the week, we were about 850,000 keys claimed. And at that point was when people started, wait, are these NFTs? Is this a crypto thing? And they did not realize, and literally so subtly, whilst making noise about other things, we effectively quietly brought the Manchester United fan club onto blockchain in a Discord server in a week, and they hadn't even noticed. And I think that's quite similar to what happened a couple of months ago with Reddit, where they just onboarded millions over the course of a couple of weeks by them not even realizing. And I just am a big fan of the undercover strategy. When I've worked on marketing on the last few things, I always personally push that. I speak in its favor. I think when you're trying to build something outside of this community, when you're trying to build something bigger and make a louder noise, I think the best way to do it is just trick them into it. Just literally blindfold them, spin them around a little bit, push them away. They'll figure it out in the end, and then they're already using the technology you want them to use. So that's personally, I think, the most effective method is to disguise it as something they're familiar with. That obviously isn't. You're not lying to people when you're calling things collectibles, and you're saying you can claim instead of mint. It's your account instead of your wallet. If it's in the way, it's in the approach, I suppose, as opposed to so on and so forth. Is my answer to that. I'm trying to really toe the line there because there's a lot of the holder stuff for United that's not announced yet, so I'm having to tread in between the lines of an NDA with that. Excuse me if I stuttered.
Yeah, don't get us in any trouble, Danny. Don't want to be barking, talking to Manchester United's lawyers after this. But
Getting
no,
chased down by the Glazers.
yeah, right. I left that world behind, hopefully. But yeah, no, I agree, and I actually think it's funny because that perspective, and it's so interesting because I think you pitch how you implement something like that depends so much, right? And with if you're a new IP that doesn't have a lot of social visibility, you got to come up with something, right? You got to stand out. You either got to be able to stand on the quality of what you're building because it's so different than everything else out there, or you got to just play your cards right and put something out there that people like or that catches somehow. I think, but if you are Manchester United and you have millions of fans all around the world and such a strong IP, I
It's
think that
easier.
well, not just that it's easier, but that the strategy becomes, okay, how do we take people who we know are going to be interested in whatever we put out there anyways, and get them into this like weird world of barriers to entry and bad press, and how do we kind of navigate beyond all of the issues that are still there with blockchain. I think your point for trying to get Web 2 people into Web 3 is such a salient one that sometimes it's as simple as just don't let them really feel any of those barriers, right? Don't let them feel like they're interacting with something that's still kind of new and glitchy and whatnot. And I think that that's going to apply to games as well, as Scott was saying, that sometimes it's you don't need to know that you're interacting with a blockchain game. But then there's kind of like what we're doing, which I think kind of toes the other side of that equation, where the theme of the entire game and universe is blockchain, and it really, at least at its early stages, the core messaging was how do we target, the goal was how do we target people within this niche, but still a large and growing niche, through providing this superhero universe and game that touches on a lot of these themes like corruption and the messaging around crypto and why it's important, and how do we touch on these themes and teach about these themes and really expand through our lore and through our story on things that are going to appeal to a somewhat niche community, albeit a big one. And then once we have that, then how do we, once we've got that core community, then how do we expand into a more Web 2 community and think through, breaking down these barriers? And so for us, even though crypto and is at our core from like a lore perspective, it's we're thinking about that same thing, right? We're not Manchester United. We don't have millions of fans around the world, but the question still presents itself. How do we show people that this is cool, regardless of the fact that you can own your items, and that Satoshi is this cool crypto superhero, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that's a really important point.
A thought that I have as you were saying that, like, how do we get people more interested in like the games that are more involved on the crypto side of things, which would be the Satoshi verse. And I think it's just by having, working closely with the in-between games, like the mobile game that we've built over at WAGME, right? So for example, going off of even what Danny said too, to play WAGME Defends, you're just going to have to download it from the App Store. You log in with your email. There's a custodial wallet created for you, and then you just play the game. Most people aren't even going to know that it is a game with NFTs. We'll have an education process in the game with some characters that we have rigged in an Unreal 5 engine, which is pretty cool too. But, if we, let's say, for example, WAGME does a collaboration with Satoshiverse, right? And we do a line of NFTs, whether we bring in one of your characters or some of your skins, as long as those characters and skins can work in both games, you can take a game like ours that's closer to a Web 2 game, and now this player has this asset and this character that they absolutely love in WAGME Defense, and then they say, oh, I can use this character in a different game. they'd be more likely to want to figure out how to play that character in the second game because they already have it and they already have a sense of what it is. And so I think it's just, games working together to start to build this theoretical metaverse that everybody wants by just doing the interoperability. I really think that it's going to be the interoperability between games that really helps this space grow. And the game, like, one thing we say on our team is it's not about how much of the pie we have, it's about making the pie bigger. There's a lot of money in gaming. It's $205 billion industry. 53% of that is on mobile. And about 4% of people who can invest are investing in crypto, and 1% of those people are playing games. So if you look at the whole ball field, there's about 96% of gamers that have absolutely nothing to do with Web3. And gamers like to play multitude of games. A lot of gamers like to play, several games at the same time. My wife got me a PS5 for Christmas. I haven't even been able to start God of War yet. I've been so busy, but I'm gonna. You bet your ass I'm gonna play God of War. It's one of my favorite games. In fact, I only ever buy PlayStations when a new God of War comes out. So gamers play lots of games, and we understand that it's not like this thing where, hey, it's McDonald's or Wendy's, right? It's like, no, games working together, if anything, will make the players want to play those games more because now they have an asset that they can take to 3 different games versus just playing in the one.
100%. I'm glad you're a God of War fan. We're actually our early design and development. God of War was probably the biggest inspiration for the combat system that we're building, and we took a lot of things like how to build a game where you're traversing terrain without a jump capability from God of War, and so it's definitely a big inspiration for what we're building. So super
Oh,
massive.
that's good. That's good to hear because I absolutely loved the online gameplay for God of War 3. It was just, I felt like it was one of the best online battle arenas that I've ever played. Like, it was very fast paced and fun. You could choose between different like weapons and gods, and they had the download data packs, right? It was pretty badass.
For sure. Super massive. I see you got your hand up. Jump in.
I do, and what a lovely hand it is too. So I'm kind of following the conversation, and it's obviously very gaming focused. There are a lot of detractors of this, the quote unquote metaverse that say, well, it's just a video game, and of course, the kind of the instances of it that we see do feel like video games. But again, I think that's kind of missing the point. There is an idea of shared social presence that is one of the hallmarks of what I think the metaverse will be. It doesn't necessarily need to be a game. It could be anything. It could be just the way a couple of kids decide to draw something together. So focusing on it as just games feels very restrictive. And like, I get the idea that games are the gateway drug for the metaverse, but I don't think the metaverse necessarily has to be crypto powered either. So this idea of the bait and switch, where you change the word mint to claim, I mean, that's bollocks. The whole thing is kabuki. Like, I also don't buy the idea that you have to kind of smudge what is underpinning the whole thing. That's just bad branding and bad marketing. We can tell a better story about all of this, and we can tell a story that is much more inclusive, and it's something that people want because they understand it. Whereas it's at the moment it's so clouded by all the speculation and everything else. So for me, like, I keep trying to kind of step away from just it's games to more profound ideas of what the metaverse is going to be. And of course, we're not there yet, but I see particularly the way young people talk to each other, particularly in Roblox, how they interact with each other, that it's the game is sort of less important than just hanging out with your mates. And that hanging out with your mates thing, for me, that's going to be the whole reason why we would ever spend time in the metaverse. So whatever supports that, whatever makes that really, really fun, safe, entertaining, worthwhile, I don't know, I'm behind that. But everything else, it sort of fades away and is less important somehow.
There's a really great anime movie called Summer Wars that I think you would like to watch, Super. where basically the entire world has an online profile, a part of the same metaverse. And that's how everyone's job gets done and gets logged. It's really cool. And that plays to a lot of the point that you were just saying, like, hey, like maybe you just need to go to work and you have to do some paperwork and file it, or you're filing it in the metaverse and your boss can check it from home. Everyone's on the same network. I mean, essentially the internet, but it was metaverse style. You should check it out. It's called Summer Wars.
I will. I absolutely will.
Yeah, and
Don't get me wrong. I love games, but I think it's reductive to reduce the metaverse of that. And I'm exploring all of these things, and I'm deliberately trying to carve out that niche for myself and think in a more profound way about all of this, because I'm fascinated by it. And I also think that like there are like 8-9-year-olds that are building what will probably become the most successful metaverse app of all time, the metaverse version of Instagram or Facebook, and like they're like sub-teens. It's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally fair, and I think games. We have such a traditional construct of what games might be, but I think when people interact with each other, with multiple people, there is typically some, other than just having a conversation, there's some uniting activity or force or something that you're doing, right? And I think that maybe a better way of talking about gaming, even when it pertains to the metaverse, is not so much games, but the gamification of metaverse experiences, right? Setting up environments where people feel like they can interact with each other that are fun, right? And I think we can take a lot of principles that have developed through gaming, and not just from a developmental perspective, right? The metaverse is these environments are going to need to be built in programs that have traditionally been used by the gaming industry and the film industry. But I do think that, from a more profound perspective, it really is about bringing people together, right? The enabling people to interact in new ways, right? And I don't think that has to be games at all, either. But I do think that there's a certain there's going to be a certain, in my mind, need to create engaging experiences, and whether that's through gamifying them or whether that's through just thinking outside of that box, and finding ways that people can interact with each other where they're not not the way that they would interact typically in person, and kind of enabling them to engage in those interactions, I think will be important. But I also think it's important, right, to think about the world audience, right, and all the barriers that we currently have. And so some of the things that I was trying to say before were touching on things like language, instant language translation technology in the metaverse, where you can really interact with people that you may not have been able to in real time through technology and through this kind of virtual presence. And so the expansive potential that has to allow you to talk to people of different cultures and to really take in, a perspective that you wouldn't otherwise have. I think that for me, I mean, when I got involved, I was much more a metaverse fan than a game fan. And, I think that the two worlds collided with this project. And I, so I share a lot of your thoughts, I think, Supermassive, on where this could all go. And, it's a really interesting thing to think about, down to, like what you were saying, how we label things and how we tell that story. Because for one audience, labeling things in a way that they're, convenient for may be what they need to get that experience that they're looking for, if the experience isn't maybe that profound. But if there is a product where a lot of the value stems from the fact that it's decentralized, or that your lore is crypto focused like ours is, I do think it's important to be upfront and find a creative and engaging way to tell that story. So I think that's a really, really salient point.
I think what you're saying about experience is really important too. We're exploring a way of doing a dating show, which is a bit like Love is Blind, because obviously in the metaverse you can be whatever you want, and it doesn't matter. You could be a giant squishy tomato, or you could be a dildo. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Can love work? There actually was a feature film where they got people in VR chat, and they all fell in love because the human connection of just talking to somebody without knowing what they look like was so enabling of all these kind of weird connections. I love all that stuff. I think that's amazing. I think figuring out how to do human interactions and human behavior and different things, like, you know, me running a marathon in the metaverse, I'm trying to understand what fitness is going to be like in this kind of future space. Will it be easier for people to access that part of themselves if they feel scared about going to the gym? Can they do it? You know, like Zwift is a great example of that. It's just social, it's shared, it's networked and online, and you can track it all. And it's, you know, it's kind of a not quite the metaverse, but on its way to it. And I was talking to someone today who said, "I want to go and climb Everest with you, but in the metaverse." I was like, "Well, wouldn't that be a thing? You know, we could just casually climb Everest before breakfast. That would be so fun. Can we do it? Not yet, but I bet you somebody somewhere is trying to figure out how you could do it, because, you know, if you've seen those pictures of Everest, there's a big old queue up there, and it's not so safe."
You can do it with Batman and Ready Player One, I think.
Dope.
Well, guys, this has been so awesome, and you know, I just to be respectful of everyone's time, because we told you guys it would be an hour. I get the feeling that we could probably go for another 2 or 3 on this topic, because it's one that, you know, even goes beyond content creation and just thinking. Like I said, you know, these topics or these calls always kind of stem into, you know, what is the future going to look like, and the cool part is that we are part of that transition into this metaverse that we're building. So I think with that, it's a good point to close this one up. We do these every week, and I would absolutely love to have everyone that was on this call on again at some point in the future. Scott, you know, Danny, Supermassive, incredibly grateful for you guys for joining. I would love to collaborate with Wagner and Baseheads in some way in the future. So let's figure out where that makes sense. I think that we're all in this together, and I think that we can all bring some really unique perspectives to the table, and synergize to kind of build something bigger than we can on our own. So 100% down. Let's follow up after this, and if you guys want to close with anything, please feel free. I'll close with saying that, you know, again, thank you to everyone on the panel. Thank you to everyone who joined. Please join us again in the future. Of course, we had the alpha release yesterday. So if you're not familiar with the Satoshiverse, now is a very exciting time to get familiar with it. Really cool, a lot happening. You know, jump in the Discord, check out the socials. Please make sure to follow everyone who was up here, and pay attention to what they're doing, because, you know, we try to get some really awesome thought leaders up here. So I know that the type of content that everyone here is going to be putting out is going to be great content. But thank you all so much. And now, if any of you guys want to do a plug or just to sign off, I'm, you know, happy to have that, and then we'll end the stream.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate you coming here and listening in. I'm really excited to see the further development of Satoshiverse, Nick. So I'll be there. I was actually playing it a little bit this morning, and I'm excited to see some updates that come over the next few weeks. So I'll be there, man. You have my full support, and thanks for having me. I'd be more than happy to come back in future episodes. And a pleasure to meet you as well, Danny and Super. And I already know you, Spencer, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be invited up here. Thank you to all the Satoshiverse team, and great to meet you, Scott, and Supermassive, and Spencer as well. I don't think we spoke properly before, so yeah, it's good to be here and take part in this discussion. These discussions are great. The only thing I got to plug is the Satoshiverse Alpha Phase 1. That's now live. The link's right above in the pinned tweets above. That's the only thing I'm here to sell. It's Satoshiverse. It's all Satoshiverse. And I literally just cannot wait to get a PC and play the damn thing myself.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Thanks for having me on the channel. And while we're plugging things, I won't plug the Baseheads. You know where they are. But I will plug the fact that I'm running the Metaverse Marathon on the 21st, and we're going to be trying to raise 100K for Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. So it's a good cause, and I will be live streaming for about 8.5 hours until I collapse, and it should be a good time for everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Super fun space. Really great meeting everyone.
All right. Well, with that, and until next time, talk to you all soon.